to performing arts and how COVID-19 has affected performing artists. I'm sharing a short clip with you of Joseph Calleja and internationally acclaimed soprano Nicola Said from a few Christmases ago when COVID wasn't around. And then we're going to speak to her very briefly to see what's happening in her life since the outbreak of the virus. That was Nicola Said, and she's here with us, joining virtually by Skype. Thank you, Nicola. Thank you for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
How has COVID-19, in your opinion, affected performing artists around the world?
It's affected performing artists like it has every other industry. Basically, you know, we've all had to adapt. We've had to implement the COVID-19 measures to keep safe, socially distanced, wear masks, use hand sanitizer. And for many of us, we are pre-recording a lot of the performances in order so that we can actually follow the social distancing regulations, because, for example, in theaters, we can only have a limit of 100 people, whatever the size of the theater. And obviously that includes an audience, it includes the stage crew, the people on the stage, so the actors, the singers, and everyone involved, which means oftentimes we don't have an audience and we must pre-record. Mm-hmm. So, yes.
Obviously, I mean, it's affected people because there's less work around performing artists. You yourself were living abroad for quite a number of years. I believe, is it 17 years?
Almost 15 years.
15 years, 15 years abroad. So how has it affected you? COVID has brought you back here to Malta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. As soon as we all heard about COVID, I was renting a place in Malta, a small room, and I was sharing with a big house with 4 other roommates, both couples, and I couldn't imagine living in that small space for more than a few months without going out. It's very difficult when you're living with people you haven't been raised with, really. And and so I got a repatriation flight. I heard the airport was closing. I panicked and I packed everything within a few days that I had in London, gave up my place of rent and made one big move back, really. And I came to live with my mum don't have to worry about rent, which is a huge plus. And I know a lot of artists have to give up their jobs, give up being performers, have to do different jobs. People who are full-time are now part-time. That's been the situation. Luckily, when I got back, I got in touch with a lot of the companies that I previously worked with, that I have a relationship with in Malta. And I had a few jobs come in at the Manuel Theatre, a few recitals with the MPO, the National Orchestra. So I consider myself quite lucky to have had that and been able to do that compared to a lot of my British counterparts. Germany was doing well, but now in Austria they've closed the theatres completely. So actually, compared to the rest of the world, Malta is doing quite well in the arts, in the theatres.
Mm-hmm. So that's very promising, isn't it? What about your future? Obviously, your future was abroad. Do you foresee that that's going to open up for you again very soon?
I'm not worried at all, actually. I had been thinking about making the move back to be based in Malta and travel from here. I have an agent in London, and he can get me auditions, and I travel for the auditions. A lot of singers are, you know, that's the way they base themselves in one place, and then they just travel, you know, when necessary and for the job. For an audition, for a job, it's a lot of money because, you know, for auditions we're not reimbursed. But either way, if I was in London, I have to travel from London. So really, it works out the same way, and this way I'm avoiding rent, I suppose.
As a performer, how can you put the audience or a potential audience, how can you put their mind at rest to make them feel safe to come and attend the concerts when there is enough space for social distancing?
Well, in the end, it's up to each individual whether they feel that they can do this, whether they feel brave enough. Obviously, you know, as if they are high risk, it wouldn't make sense for them to put themselves in that position. It's a great support for us when we feel that our audiences are supporting us and taking that risk with us. There is a certain risk involved, but we, theatres and production companies, take all necessary precautions as advised by the governments and the WHO, so World Health Organization.
Thanks, Nicola. What are your thoughts on virtual performances?
I haven't had too many experiences. I've done live videos on Facebook, but informal ones. I hope to do some virtual live auditions starting in January, unless, you know, with COVID, hopefully once that passes, won't be too soon until I actually perform live in auditions again. But yes, the pre-recordings, I think, are the best way around these things, really.
Yes.
And if we have a secure internet, a stable internet, and we socially distance when we perform live, there's no reason why it can't happen, really.
Thank you very much, Nicola. I wish you a good evening. Thank you for joining us today.
You too. Thank you.
That was soprano Nicola Said. I thank you very much for joining us today. I'll be with you again next week at the same time. Should you have any queries, any questions, please do refer them to Net Television or myself via my blogs, even anonymously if you wish. Good evening.